You've heard us talk about hormone therapy by Happy Mammoth many times by now. It's a supplement that helps women maintain optimal hormone levels with over 50,000 glowing reviews from women all over the globe. 98% say that they would recommend it to friends and family. And that's why we're recommending it to you. Now we can take those hormone harmony results even further by pairing it with Happy Mammoth's probiotic collagen protein. It helps restore gut lining integrity, promoting overall hormone balance. It also helps relieve occasional bloating, reduce sugar cravings, and helps you feel satisfied longer. Because your gut directly affects your hormones, improving gut health can amplify your hormone harmony results so you feel like yourself again. Happy Mammoth is dedicated to making women's lives easier, and that means using only science-backed ingredients that have been proven to work for women. They make no compromise when it comes to quality, and it shows. Right now, you can try prebiotic collagen protein and hormone harmony risk-free and get 15% off your entire order with code MurderDiaries at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code MurderDiaries for 15% off today.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Big news. Sephora is now on Uber Eats. So if you find yourself facing a beauty emergency, like needing a last-minute gift, or you're just out of your favorite mascara, again, don't panic. We got you. Order now and get $10 off on Sephora orders of $50 or more on the Uber Eats app. Order now. Offer ends October 30th. One order per customer. Additional terms apply. See app for availability. Delivery fees may apply.
Welcome back to Unscripted. I'm Paige.
And I'm Natalie.
We're excited to let you know that we are going to be moving Unscripted to its own feed. So it's going to essentially be its own podcast. We're shooting for January, and we will keep you updated, and we'll probably cross-upload the first episode or two so you guys are aware of everything going on, because we realize that some of you listen to us only for true crime and some of you are listening to both. So our hope is that those of you who listen to both will follow us along on the new feed, and it'll keep the Murder Diaries feed a little less cluttered as well. So thank you for that. In the meantime, the documentary that we're discussing today crosses the line between true crime and unscripted. So it's seriously the perfect documentary to discuss, and Natalie and I were really excited to talk about it.
I would classify this documentary as true crime adjacent. It's the perfect mix of pop culture and true crime content without being exploitative. The one we're watching today is Trainwreck: The Cult of American Apparel.
To understand American Apparel, we have to go all the way back to 1969 and beyond. This is when Dov Charney was born in Montreal, Quebec on January 31st. And he is the mastermind behind what became American Apparel. Dov Charney was born to Syrian Jewish parents, and he actually was diagnosed dyslexic and had ADD. And when you get to know what happened with American Apparel, this almost makes sense, because he did have a pretty large reputation for being kind of high energy. But this came with, and I was telling my husband this as we were watching it, that he actually had some really kind of cool, unorthodox is not the right word at all, but like kind of not really been done before ideas. Like, you really, with all the awful things he ends up doing, you really can't deny that this creative brain came with some really cool ideas for American Apparel and everything that came with it. For example, the way that they used to choose people to work for American Apparel. Like, there was this thing of, hey, if somebody's shoplifting, ask them if they want a job.
I thought that was really interesting. They talk a little bit about that in the documentary, and You get a sense of they really wanted someone to encompass the vibe of the business rather than having any business experience.
Which the vibe really was kind of like early hipster, a little bit twee, but mostly hipster. Like that's who he was looking for. A little bit alternative, although of course that became trendy by 2012, but we're talking the earlier 2000s. This is like the origination of like twee and hipster and all of that. But that is long after, actually, when American Apparel blew up. It was long after it started. It actually started all the way back in 1989, and he began selling just t-shirts under the American Apparel name.
And then the following year, he dropped out of college and started the American Apparel brand officially with a $10,000 loan from his parents.
And this isn't just any college that he dropped out of, though. I really want to just take a step back to discuss. He dropped out of Tufts. That's a top 50 school in the U.S., like well above top 50.
And trust me, Paige knows. She knows what it takes to get into these colleges.
It might be number 37 in the nation right now. Obviously, back in 1990, I don't know what it was, but Tufts is not an easy school to get into. So it also kind of shows you, like, he was not, again, besides the horrific stuff that he does and inexcusable behavior, he was not an idiot.
No, he wasn't an idiot, but he was a controversial figure. So like we said, he started this company unofficially in 89, and then he borrowed money from his parents in 1990. And up until that point, he was really trying to build a brand, right? And by 97, we now find American Apparel based in Los Angeles. And that created some controversy around the globe because in order to be based in Los Angeles and have clothes made in Los Angeles, Dove was actually paying more money for these clothes to be made than if he had the shirts imported from elsewhere.
He stood by that for like the life of American Apparel. Although there was still some controversy around the conditions these things were being made in here as well. But I think that's any type of facility like that is going to get some scrutiny, of course. What he was also controversial for was that he was paying higher than average wages to the people who were working with him, and including benefits, which is one of those things where I tell you, like, despite all this horrific stuff he did, he also did things like this. He had this belief that, like, yeah, it doesn't matter what your background was. You've been working for me for 6 months. I'm going to promote you. Now, some of that was kind of quid pro quo, but some of it really was he was willing to build a 21-year-old who has left their Mormon family in Utah and left the church, and they've been a bit shunned. They're giving them this chance. They're giving them kind of a career pathway. So, or I should say he's giving them.
I like that you bring that up because it's clear that he does tend to lean toward hiring newbies in the space, right? Like we said, he hired people based on their aesthetic. So people would come in and shop, and he'd have an affinity for the way that they dressed and thought, okay, this would be someone great to represent this company, but they may not have had that background. And by hiring newbies, he basically had to build them from scratch to teach them how to get everything done. And he really made them feel special when he was doing this. He built them up. He gave them status. Like you said, he also gave them money, a lot more than they probably would have gotten elsewhere.
He gave them phones, computers, career pathways, but he also put them up on billboards. Like, he'd be like, hey, come model. And then, like, oh, by the way, do you want, like, to work in one of the stores?
There's a clip, some footage from the documentary where he says, oh, do you like that model? Basically, she works downstairs. So there was this accessibility of the brand that people just walking in the LA neighborhoods felt like they could attain. They could be a big part of the brand without having a big name behind them.
And he lived in LA too. He had a huge house, which was a really cool house. They show it in the documentary. In Silver Lake.
It's like a historical home.
It's historical. It's in Silver Lake. He's a local. I mean, obviously a big house like that's not very relatable, but in terms of being part of the community, he was.
And it's within a small gated community. They actually reference it to be somewhat of a hipster Playboy mansion, if that gives you any idea of what was going on at this particular residence.
This all makes it so clear why he was going towards young people in terms of creating this hive mentality, because he also wanted all of his employees to read this book, like the 48 Pillars of Power or something like that.
The 48 Laws of Power.
That's the one. That's the one. So this book teaches people how to basically create a cult almost. Like, it's basically like, how do I become the powerful one in whatever space I'm trying to create? And it says some really interesting things that I think some people could carry with them, but also some really like funky things. Like, it tells you to feed them just enough where you are the only one that could be the one that's feeding them. And it's so wild.
I want to give you a couple examples of the laws within the 48
yes, give
laws
us specific
that
ones,
the author writes about.
It's going to be much better than what I was just trying to explain.
So law 1 is never outshine the master. You want to advise to always make those above you feel superior. That kind of keeps that power dynamic in place that he was building. Law 5 is so much depends on reputation, guard it with your life. And this is an emphasis on the importance of reputation as a source of power, which we can see Dove clearly embraced, because he really wanted everything about American Apparel to be a brand of its own. And probably the one that is really relevant to the documentary is Law 28, enter action with boldness. It teaches the importance of confidence when taking action. And Dove really took that one seriously. Throughout the documentary, you see him brazenly berating his employees. He is very hard to get along with. And after his love bombing, basically, that he's done with them, he has the one-on-ones, he builds them up from nothing. And then he takes this opportunity to enter every action he does with boldness, whatever he's doing.
Another really great example of these laws of power is number 3 that I think Dove really took with him, was conceal your intentions, as well as, and that's law 3. And then there's another one, act like a king to become one.
Oh, there you go.
People are referencing it in the documentary, because some of them read it right then. Some of them read it as Dove's behavior became worse, because they're like, wait a minute, like, he's got to be following this. Like, there's got to be some answers about his behavior in this book. But some of them are referencing it again or for the first time in this documentary, because, again, he gave them all a copy. So I'm assuming the production crew also was like, hey, here, by the way, we're going to talk about this.
Oh, yeah. In their interview sections, each of the past employees rifle through the book, and they come to realizations as they're sitting
like,
there.
Oh my gosh, like, this is so him. My favorite realization was Johnny Makeup. They were hilarious, because the first thing they said was, when I got promoted, or when I started working here, I got a phone, a laptop, or this, that, whatever they got. They were mentioning a couple of items they got, and then they go, and a copy of the 48 Laws of Power. I did da-da-da with this, da-da-da with this, and I threw away the 48 Laws of Power. Like, they did not care about this book whatsoever. So the first time that they are reading it is actually on camera during these interview segments that you're talking about. And even they were like, whoa, like, that's intense. Like, he did all of these things.
I love that you bring up that moment, because Johnny Makeup is referencing basically the welcome package that Dove gave his employees as they moved up in the company. And amongst those items, obviously, was the 48 Laws of Power book, but also was a personal massager, like a sex toy, that was included in every single employee's welcome bags. And I think
how did I forget really what it was, though? I'm dying.
Right? I thought you were being like discreet or something, but it really encompasses what Dove was about, right? So we have the sex toy and the 48 Laws of Power in the same package. And it just shows how oversexed and obsessed with power he was.
This also goes back to that law 3 of conceal your intentions as well, because he gives it to them none of these past employees mention that he told them what to do with any of these items, especially the vibrator.
Well, if we were to take what Johnny Makeup says as evidence of what these employees did with them, they used them.
Right, but he never said, like, I want you to keep it private, but I'm really big on people understanding sexual health, or just nothing like that. He just was like, here. And in a way, because they're so young, like a lot of these people were 20 to 25 years old,
maybe even 18.
I feel like it's a little bit abusive. No, like, I'm going to give you this
absolutely
weird gift.
It's inappropriate.
Yeah, it's almost
to be gifted that from your boss, let alone someone's exceptionally older, someone who is predatory.
Yeah. Don't even gift me that at my bachelorette. Like, no thanks. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little prude, but like, I don't need that from somebody. Like, oof.
Yeah, if you want one, you'll go buy it yourself.
Sure, exactly. While all this is happening, he's starting his first store in 2003. So it's kind of interesting here that from 1989 until 2003, there was no brick and mortar. But this is also when it really starts popping off. And it was a scale that really hadn't been seen before. All the way through the recession of 2008-9, they were like, what? We're opening... I shouldn't even just quote it without saying. This quote that I realized I was about to say is coming from the documentary of somebody going, we barely even felt the recession because we're going, wait, there's a recession? We're opening 5 stores. And by the way, these are like in other countries. American Apparel was not hurting at this time in the early 2000s all the way through the recession.
Part of that had to be the fact that they were really leaning into this provocative image that hadn't been done by any brand before. And I think part of that is their specific look. I guess this is how we could describe it. They were, like I said, provocative. One ad that's coming to mind is a woman sitting, and you only see the bottom half of her, with her legs open in underwear. And it says, "We're open." And you would see billboards of images just like that. And
it was probably somebody who worked there because he did not want that curated look. Like, he wouldn't have had the Hillary Duffs or the Jessica Simpsons or any of the people we've already talked about on Unscripted. He didn't want them. He wanted that girl with the imperfect nose and the mole and
maybe no makeup on. And I mean, nips were out everywhere. You saw armpit hair, you saw bush. It was just, come as you are. I'm going to photograph you. And I think part of that look was borrowed from Terry Richardson, who was very popular during the early 2000s. He was a photographer in the LA area. And it turns out that he actually did some photographing for American Apparel. And at least for me, when I hear the name Terry Richardson, I think of people like Lindsay Lohan, where he would capture images of them with knives. Like, she has a whole series of photos with him just like at someone's apartment holding kitchen knives. He was very, again, provocative and a little bit sleazy.
That's the perfect
at the
word
same time.
For these, is sleazy. Like, it wasn't like that horrific if you're down in like a subway hall to see them, but they were definitely provocative and a little sleazy. There was like a 70s retro vibe to some of the artwork too, and they are artsy. They are artsy.
They are also really from the male gaze.
Yeah, sure.
And it's clear that whoever is photographing, whoever is commissioning these photographs and photo shoots to take place really has a specific image in mind, and it's coming from that of male lust, because it is a lot of breasts, it's a lot of open legs, it's sexual positions, and it's a lot of female body parts, but not always their heads are shown in the images.
When you do see their heads, they are young, and there's a lot of natural beauty. And when you do see their face, they're usually very young, 20-something, natural beauty, but in a very unique way. And maybe when we do our post on Instagram, we'll have to see if we can't find some to plug in there.
We'll definitely be sure to include some, because if you weren't there, you really need to see some of these images to get the vibe that was American Apparel, that it basically captured the essence of the cult-like community that he was creating. It wasn't just a brand of clothes. It was a community of people coming together who maybe felt like misfits elsewhere or didn't necessarily fit into the LA 10 look. So yeah, I think we'll definitely have to include those.
It's the beginning of the hipster movement too. You know, not necessarily can you see that in these billboards, but it's what would lead to that, right? The person who doesn't have a career path type job, you know, more alternative type of lifestyle and things that they like. And that's how hipsters were born. And then obviously by 2012, it was, you know,
then it became
Brooklyn,
mainstream.
Exactly. So I want to make sure that we're like painting that picture the right way when we're talking about like what like led to hipsters and stuff.
And I think it was really the birthplace of the deep V t-shirt. Do you remember? That was so huge at this time. I mean, I think it hit its boiling point, or, you know, the top of its popularity in the early 2010s, but in early 2000s when this was really starting to take hold, when I'm saying it, I mean American Apparel, when it was really getting its foothold in pop culture, it was a new thing to have like such a deep V. And both guys and girls were wearing deep Vs. It was a lot of unisex clothes as well that were being sold in the store.
Lots of things that hadn't really been done before. They sound familiar now, but that's because American Apparel started it way back in 2003. And within 2 years, they opened up 65 stores across North America and Europe. So we're talking 2 different continents entirely. So lots of different countries, 65 stores. I used to go to the one in San Diego, and I used to be like a little intimidated going. I didn't.
It was intimidating.
Yeah.
Because you want it to look a certain way when you walked in. It was similar to the vibe of intimidation that you got when you walked into Hollister or Abercrombie in the same era, because you knew that if you were walking into any of these stores, you had to embody the look of the store, because you want it to be the person who could leave saying that they were stopped and asked to work there. If you got stopped and asked to work there just because of how you looked, you knew that you made it, basically. And that was like, you got bragging rights. And
I mean, obviously I went in there and I bought what I wanted, but I remember just parking. I mean, like, okay, we're going in. And because you also weren't shopping online and stuff, so you didn't already know what you wanted a lot of times. Although American Apparel really had like a lot of the same cuts in like 15 different colors.
Like 5 different styles in a million colors.
Exactly.
So you could buy the same shirt, like maybe you wanted your deep V, and you could get it from black, white, maroon, all the way down to like yellow.
That was what was huge at the time, though. It really was, because you could go to Forever 21 and do the same thing with their like V-neck long sleeves. Still have one.
That's so funny that you mentioned that.
I still have one that's white, and she has been hung dry. So
I was going to say, I definitely don't fit in mine.
She's alive. Oh, well, I mean, you know, there's a little bit of give there with the plasticky fabrics that they're made out of. But yeah, this was common in the day, so it wasn't something unique to American Apparel. But who knows? Maybe they started it and Forever 21 followed suit. I don't know, because they kind of grew at the same time, to be honest.
And you did mention that we necessarily weren't shopping online. That's something that I distinctly remember about American Apparel, is going to their website and just looking to see what they had. And I was always shocked every time, because their models in the website photos, they wouldn't be blurred. Their nipples wouldn't be blurred. Their pubic hair wouldn't be blurred. It was very provocative from the ads all the way down to their catalog online.
Okay, and listen, no, it was not weird to have a website that you could go to. In fact, it was probably already somewhat commonplace and almost a requirement by this time. I guess what I mean is when you went shopping, you didn't always hit the website first, even before going to a restaurant. And that is all I do now, because I need to go in with a plan. I mean, that's fitting for me, but it's just also what I'm used to now. But so this is hilarious hearing about your experience on the website, though.
Yeah, it was a trip to actually remember that because I haven't thought of American Apparel in maybe a decade and a
Same.
half. And as I was watching the documentary, I was thinking, oh yeah, I totally remember being shocked at someone's hairy armpit being on screen or someone's nipple just full on out. And obviously that's just the human body. It's not anything to be shocked about, but it just explains and shows the culture at the time.
And I think the point was also, on top of it being like just so LA, like urban kind of trashy art, or sleazy is a better word. I feel like trashy is more negative. We're trying to be more neutral, if you will. But I think that was like, because we didn't have the memes and we didn't have the Instagrams of the day yet, that was maybe what would cause the stir, the virality of it all.
You hit the nail on the head. And something that I think Dove really didn't take into account as he was building this brand and as he was expanding overseas, like you said, he opened up more than 65 stores in North America and Europe, is that it's expanded way too fast and at a time in 2008 where people were struggling to keep food on their tables. And so by 2009, the company completely stopped making a profit and it started to struggle.
By 2010, he's saying things like there were, a handful of stores that maybe should have never been opened, some of his like more global stores. And obviously a lot of people agreed that this expansion did end up happening too quickly. And that can happen with businesses. You're making money hand over foot. You think the only way to continue to make more is to open more stores, which there's a truth to that, but you also just can't scale too quickly. But also if you miss your mark and you don't strike while the iron's hot, it was probably confusing. But also I think the ego of it all was really big to him too. He probably wanted to have this humongous chain of stores, which he kind of did achieve that for the most part before it kind of went down. And nothing lasts forever anyways.
So like we mentioned, around 2008, 2009, 2010, it's clear that the company isn't turning any profit. And some of the stores probably should have never been opened, like Dove himself said. But at the same time, he is using it for good. He was using it in a lot of his activism. So he had two campaigns, I guess we'll call them, Legalize LA and Legalize Gay. And these were done to support immigration reform and the legalization of same-sex marriage after Prop 8 was passed in 2008. And so he would even pass out shirts that said Legalize LA and shirts that said Legalize Gay, and he would hand those out to protesters.
The crowds had a really great reaction to this, and people wanted those shirts that weren't in attendance to any of these events that he passed them out at, and they actually ended up selling them in stores and online. Of course, we mentioned that he was not in favor of the sweatshop fast fashion model, if you will, and he was kind of outspoken about all kinds of things in the fashion world revolving around poor conditions for workers, and kind of talked about slave labor and death trap manufacturing. So he did propose a global garment workers minimum wage, but we would be remiss if we left out, and I did mention this a bit earlier, that his own factory conditions were scrutinized.
And the irony of officials shutting down his own factory for what was labeled flagrant violations of mandatory public health infection control orders.
That happened in 2020 and was the result of 300 workers getting infected with the very contagious COVID-19, and 4 workers died as a result of this huge outbreak in the facility.
And a point of contention in the documentary is the fact that all of the employees, whether they worked in the factory, whether they worked in the offices, doing advertising, they all had to sign NDAs, basically, that released Dove and American Apparel from all legal claims against him and the company. So whatever happened, whether they caught COVID and died, or he was abusive and toxic to them, they weren't able to take legal action against him.
And this is a tactic he used under American Apparel as well. By now, in 2020, which we're talking about, he was under what was called LA Apparel. But same idea when it was American Apparel, these young people were basically signing their right to...
Signing their voice away.
They were signing their voice away, their right to litigate anything that may have happened to them negatively. And there were very sneaky tactics and things included in this contract or NDAs that he had them sign. And a lot of people, myself included, probably barely even know like what they're looking at. And it's one of those things that if you want this opportunity, you have to sign this. If you don't sign it, you don't get it. So people sign their lives away. And there's been countless allegations against him. And part of this is the reason why on June 8th of 2014, American Apparel specifically, and so we're backing up a few years here to 2014, he was suspended from American Apparel for 30 days, and it alleged that he had engaged in conduct that repeatedly put himself, quote, in a position to be sued by numerous former employees for claims that include harassment, discrimination, and assault. And I think this comes from a lot of these employees that became what they called Dove girls, where Natalie mentioned at the top of the episode, kind of like a hipster Playboy mansion. That's exactly what this Silver Lake mansion had become. And as these people are getting older, they're starting to realize that some of the things he said in the work environment, some of the things sexual in nature that he was doing with these young girls was completely inappropriate. And it didn't just stop at...
Oh, beyond inappropriate. Yeah. It should never happen in a work environment, let alone in some friends' relationships. He really, through these NDAs, created a legal loophole for him because it allowed him to get away with all of the abuses that he was doing.
Yeah, like I said, there were things in those NDA contracts that I don't even know how they're in there. And they're so under lock and key. There's a lot of things that we still barely even know. Like, I'm surprised they could even do the documentary.
I was surprised that they were bringing some of the things up that they did because it made me wonder if it was in violation to those NDAs that they had signed. But the fact that all of his employees signed them also gives this guy the ability to say, oh, I've never been sued. Yeah, because everyone signed an NDA, so that prevents them from suing you. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't have been sued. It just means like technically you're not lying when you say it.
Exactly. And he's one of those guys that kind of gets away with everything because by 2016, so he's kind of terminated or suspended from American Apparel in 2014. By 2016, he founds LA Apparel, which was the 2020 facility that was shut down that we mentioned a few moments ago.
So basically the same thing under a different name. He was
pretty much
trucking along.
Pretty much. And trucking along he was, because he ends up working with none other than Kanye West with Yeezy.
And this is before Kanye West really has his public meltdown, and becomes persona non grata. So I think it's clear that birds of a feather flock together, as they say. They obviously found each other and found some common ground. Maybe it was their personalities. I don't know.
Lord knows. But regardless, Dov Charney was tapped as the new CEO of Kanye's company, Yeezy. And part of me understands that, yeah, look, if you look at this history of American Apparel, he's scaled really great business. And there's all these NDAs that really mask all this information of assault and things coming out. But also Kanye is controversial for a lot of reasons and isn't the most ethical, kind person as well. So, misery loves company. So maybe they, we're kind of kindred spirits and we're working really well together. Ew.
I don't know where else we go from there.
This is kind of where we are today.
Well, that's where the documentary ends. And that's sort of where the information online about Dov Charney ends as well. Like, yeah, he worked with Yeezy, Kanye West on Yeezy. He had all these sexual assault allegations against him. We don't know what happens with those allegations.
No, he was never found guilty in court.
And the one recourse that these victims had, these former employees, whether they were assaulted by him or whether like sexually assaulted him or verbally assaulted by him, is they did show one of the lawyers that represented a few of the former employees. And this lawyer said that their only recourse was to try to change some law surrounding signing NDAs as an employee. And so I don't know where that ends because nothing that I'm aware of has happened yet.
No, because he knew exactly what he was making these young people sign. And again, he was trying to create that hive mentality, and he was trying to kind of prey on younger people that would be easier to dazzle and manipulate. I do also want to state that he is not currently the CEO of Yeezy, but there was like a lot of work that was being done together, and he was tapped for that. There's an article about that you could read and get more information on that, but there was definitely a time where he was involved with Yeezy. This is kind of where the story of Dov and the documentary kind of get up to date. I don't want to necessarily say end, because as you've mentioned a few times, he hasn't been accused or arrested. He's still out there. He's still working on
he's still
working on LA Apparel. Again, he did work with Yeezy for a specific amount of time. Supposedly in 2023, Dov was responsible for printing the White Lives Matter shirt that Kanye wore. So Dov is still inserting himself into controversy.
Oh, I mean, he is someone that is so unpredictable, feeds on group humiliation, on abusing those underneath him. It's not surprising that he would still be working and still be controversial.
If any of you listening have more information about what he's been up to, please leave it in the comments on Spotify, because this guy is wild.
Oh, I'd love to hear. LA listeners, please let us know any personal stories you may have about this guy. We would love to hear what you have to say, and maybe we can read some of them in another Unscripted so everyone else can, the class can hear.
Please chat. We want to know. Until then, make sure you come back on Thursday for the true crime case coverage of Murder Diaries, and follow us on Instagram. Leave us a positive review. It really helps us keep Unscripted and the Murder Diaries true crime episodes coming.
And remember, Unscripted is moving to its own RSS feed very soon. So stay tuned.
We're going to keep reminding you, so bear with us. But we are so thankful for those of you that have been listening to Unscripted. We want to make sure you know exactly where to find us.
Bye.